Howdy Meeps, welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show. It's Wednesday, Meeple Syrup time here. And we have today with us on our designer spotlight, Bernie, Lin, and Brendon Kendrick. Fellas, can you tell us where you're from?
We are in San Francisco, California.
Oh, I was just talking about San Francisco with my friend Banana. She is going to Big Bad Con, which is in the Bay Area, and it is very much an RPG LARP convention. It's in October. She's getting married there, and who knows? I might come because she said you should come. I said, "Oh,
come by."
Yeah, it's right in the. We just instituted a new reading week at our in the colleges in Canada, so we're having a midterm break at that period of time. So it might actually fall right in my midterm break. Jesse won't be there anymore at that time, though, which is happy, actually. It's a happy thing. It's a good thing because it'll be closer to me and closer to Erica, and that'll be good. So that'll be wonderful. But let's talk about who you are. Bernie, who are you? What do you do?
You mean my day job?
Sure.
Or both of your personas, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I mean, besides game designing, I work for a startup that does business furnished apartment travels, and I'm a product manager and a growth marketer in that company.
Cool. And Brendon, how about you?
It's pretty right now. Software developer, and I do spend a little too much time basically game designing during work hours, so that's why I say it's not relevant. But yeah, I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, not too far from Canada.
Not too far from Canada. That's good. Yeah, we like you just as much. And Bernie, are you originally from San Fran?
Been here for a while, but family's in LA and moved around a lot between the Midwest, LA, and Taiwan.
Right. And do people from San Francisco actually really hate it when we say San Fran?
I don't care. maybe
It's
people
like,
grew up here.
Yeah,
He doesn't
right?
care. I don't care, but yes, people don't like it.
Yeah, right, that's right. And I do have a personal question for Bernie. Bernie, is your last name Two Trees?
Yes. Lim.
Because my last name is also Two Trees. Just pronounced slightly differently depending on which dialect you're speaking. So,
are you from like Khoisan?
No, we're from Hainan.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so I had another friend with the same spelling.
Yeah. They were from. Where were they from?
Area.
Yeah. So my family went during the war. They went to Malaysia. Well, actually, it'd be that way then. Malaysia. So there's a lot of limbs and ims and stuff in Malaysia, Singapore, that kind of area. Yeah, interesting stuff. But actually, I just thought,
I have a question too.
Yeah.
Where are you all at?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, you know where Jesse's at. You met him last week.
Yeah, I'm in Mountain
We're in
View.
the other room. Yeah.
I'm knocking on your door, on your wall.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm in Toronto.
And I'm in London. Not the good London. I'm in the
we're both in Ontario.
I'm in the second best London in the world. The second best London in the world for 136 years running.
Yeah.
Always second best.
It's pretty late in London right now.
It's really late in London. It would be 2:00 in the morning in London right now.
Wow.
Yeah, but we're not there, so that's okay. So
it's all good.
So, what got you guys into designing in the first place?
I just had a terrible idea one day, and here we are a year and a half later. No, I wanted, at the time, I wasn't aware of any skirmish games that had kind of a third-party AI, sort of a common enemy that was involved. And it was about a year and a half or more now ago. And the idea just really appealed to me. And I don't know, I was just kind of like sitting at home, and it just literally came out of nowhere. Right. And I got really excited about the idea, and I called Bernie.
That was your first call, was to Bernie.
Yes.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I worked in the gaming industry for about 5-6 years before. This is my first job that's not in the gaming industry for a while. And I was just like, never thought about game designing. I play a lot of board games, a lot of video games. And then when Brendon brought it up, I was like, oh, that's crazy. And then he kind of convinced me. So here we are.
To go on that wild ride. That's a really interesting origin story for Omnicron-Protocol, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you have, so it's not a co-op game, is it?
It's you could play it as 2 teams against each other. So maybe mixed co-op. It's always going to be
competitive co-op. As they like to call it.
Right. So team versus team, but then also in the midst of Team Red and Team White, team Team Brendon and Team Bernie, there is an AI thing that is attacking both people. Okay, that's really actually cool. Because you're right, there often isn't in any of the more well-known war game miniatures games like Warhammer or whatever. It's usually just I'm playing orcs and you're playing Space Marines and we'll just clash in the middle. But you're talking about that plus the game pushing back against you in some format.
Yeah, and actually, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because when I was talking with Bernie about it, it sounded like really cool. It's not just that it's an AI faction that's running around. It's actually your own fault when the AI faction runs at you. And it's not really controlled. It's actually controlled by both players. So
that's true. Yeah, we did actually we played around with a lot of different ideas about AI and having them work through some sort of system. And after many, many tries, and it was very hard, and we actually realized, sort of in the middle of trying a bunch of different stuff, we realized, you know what, this would be way more interesting if it's something that the players don't have to figure out and understand, how to move them according to this rule where anyone could move them. They just have to be moved. Whereas now we kind of have it where basically, if he makes a mistake or makes a bunch of noise or whatever, it's actually my option to then move them in different ways that could have tactical advantages for me down the road, or immediately, I get attacks on his characters, stuff like that. And of course it can backfire too. It's easy to hit yourself, but it just offers a lot more complexity with strategy and tactics immediately of the turn, and so it just turned into a much better thing than any AI we were trying to come up with.
There's definitely something I think I resisted for a while. I was just like, well, if you let the players control it, it's going to be OP, and people are going to really piss the other person off. And then once we really tried it, it actually became. One of the other principles, I think I just told Jesse about this, was we really wanted to streamline all the different parts of the rules and let the different rules, the interaction between the rules, make it tactically challenging, not each rule in itself. So we're like, hey, by just adding this alone, the replayability, you can just play so many times, every time, unless you do exactly the same thing. These third party, we call them Sims, they will be moving in a different way because you have a different opponent, or you made a different amount of noise, or you made the noise in a different place on the board. Even though the rules are just super simple, they always move the same way. They always attack someone next to them.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. You have your very first cheerleader here. 1 second. I'm going to show that on board. Boom. So Johnny Hinkle says, "Go, Bernie, go!" Woo! Sweet. And congratulations to Johnny for his team pulling across the finish line just the other day with The Goblin King is Angry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So they just funded the other day, which is great. Yeah, those meeples are pretty cool. The Goblin meeples are really nice. So that sounds like almost revolutionary in what you guys are trying to accomplish there, which is really neat. So the players, you're saying, are responsible for their own doom and demise, and the other team or other player can choose to perhaps exploit that, or maybe not. They could do something else. So that's interesting. So there's some tactical differences in what you might want to do depending on what your goals are. It's like, I could take advantage of this now and hammer on my opponent, or I could meet my own objectives over here. Right?
Yeah. For one quick example, sometimes you get surrounded by these Sims, and then your opponent's like, oh, I could do this. I could just make a lot of noise and gain a lot of points. But all of a sudden, they made so much noise that all the Sims got pulled off you. Yeah. So instead of using it to attack your opponent, you could actually use it to kind of clear out your area so you could go do your thing. So exactly kind of what you said there.
Kind of bait yourself sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
the counterexample to that is like, oh no, I'm swarmed. But in some scenarios, you actually need to knock them out to get points. So you're always walking a fine line between basically getting your characters knocked out and succeeding at the goals of the various scenarios and stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. So that sounds like then it's not your typical head-to-head elimination skirmish, but you said goals and scenarios and points. Yeah. What led you guys to include that kind of a system in a skirmish game instead of just going for the traditional wipe them all out win condition?
Yeah, I think at least for myself, even when I played Warhammer, I really liked the ones that had different objectives. It kind of it adds replayability in a pretty simple way. It's like, oh, now you have to do this, or you don't have to just kill each other. You have to go grab that thing first. So we kind of started it just with that idea in mind. Mm-hmm. And then we added multiple ways of scoring kind of to add that variety so that you can play a faction of your choice. That faction might not be good at knocking the other player out, but you could still have a very competitive game doing what you enjoy doing. So some people might I'm just going to do the goal or the objective of this scenario that we're playing. I'm not even going to bother knocking anything out. Or we've definitely seen some friends or quote unquote friends that they just go at each other and it's just like the goal doesn't even matter. So this game,
they just want to kill each other.
Yeah, they're just like, I just want to kill you. I don't care if like the 20 Sims surround me and kill me later. Yeah. I just want to kill you.
I don't care if I lose.
It's a blaze of glory moment. That's all it's for.
Yeah.
We have another question. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to also say that one thing that we wanted also, with a lot of games where it's like wipe out everybody on the other side, you end up with a landslide victory where you have to play through a couple of turns and like you have one guy and you're just, it's like kind of a miserable experience when you're playing a game like that. You're losing and there's nothing you can do. You can either call it or just slog through the next 20 minutes of just dying miserably. So that's another part that we really like about our game and we wanted to have in it is just the kind of up to the last turn, we want there to be a chance, for you to succeed. So that's another reason why we didn't just go for kill everyone.
Hey, we have a question from the audience and apparently a question from my son. What's your question?
You have a visitor.
Dear parents and guardians, our class is about to study an important lesson on the early stages of puberty.
That letter.
Whoa.
Which many fifth graders are beginning to experience. Are you beginning to experience puberty?
No.
No.
I'm
all right.
still short.
You're still short. Okay, then we'll look at that later. Okay.
Go, run
Run for the clouds.
That's all
So,
puberty.
my question was, what's happening down? No, I'm kidding. That's not my question. My
No.
question is, Johnny is asking a question. He asks, "Is the AI beatable?" And then he says, like, fully beatable.
Not in the skirmish mode. I would probably describe this as the endless waves. If you play any games that have like those settings,
Right.
there will always be more of them.
Mhm.
You could control them and you could probably mitigate them, but you'll never be fully beating them.
Yeah.
They will always they generate no matter what.
Yeah. And there's typically at the end of the game, there is more than you can deal with. You know what I mean? Like there are more than the game starts with. Even if you spend pretty much all the time knocking them out, there will be more.
That actually brings up a really good point. There's a huge world and story written for this. For those who are interested, it's on our website. We've been posting stories every Tuesday for like 4 or 5 months now. But one of the feeling we always wanted is these are people in a city, trapped in a city during the apocalypse, and they need to go do something to kind of help them survive or help them potentially get out and solve this problem. But whenever you're doing that, half of the city is kind of infected with these cyber zombies or Sims. And you want that feeling that we're playing this game, we're doing this goal, or we're like trying to knock each other out. But as we're doing that, more and more will keep coming. And it becomes a situation where you just have to leave after a while, like achieve your goal within these turns and get out of there. So generally every game at the end, that is the feeling that we now, just after tweaking it a lot, have accomplished. So like it just feels really good. It's like, oh shoot, there's still this rest of the world around us that we need to be aware of, and then we just need to learn when to give up and leave.
Yeah.
And so can you avert the apocalypse, or like is it just like this is just happening?
Not yet.
Okay. Oh, so you're actually going to constantly build scenarios into this? Is that the plan? Like, you'll keep building?
Mhm.
Is it going to be open to other people's content as well? Is this something you're like a community you're generating? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, we plan to. Yeah, we plan to have hopefully an online tool where people can submit scenarios and kind of have a little voting system, and hopefully awesome ones will definitely rise to the top.
Yeah, and a lot of times we have a kind of role-playing group that kind of plays in this world to help us generate ideas. So a lot of times, like our players will just do something, and we're like, oh, that's not what we intended, but that's a great story.
That's cool. Yeah.
So we just come up with a story kind of around that and post that.
Neat. So which role-playing system are you using when you're playing in the world of Omnicron-Protocol?
Actually, we're using Genesis, which is a fantasy flight game, sort of open system. It uses the same. If any of you are familiar with the Star Wars games, it uses roughly the same dice system. And I used to GM a Edge of the Empire game.
Right.
So right at the time that we started doing this, they released Genesis, and I was like, oh, I know the system, and we need stories. So it was kind of
a really good way to generate stories when you think about it.
I was just going to say, I don't think we've ever had anyone say basically their playtesting for their idea generating came from like, well, we RPG this.
Yeah.
When something happens in the story, we write it in.
Yeah.
Good
Story
idea.
is super important for me. So I was just like, that was like the first thing we did. It's like, what's the world? Why are we doing this? What are we fighting? And then we just went from there.
What's my motivation?
So how many of the characters that you can play as in the miniature board game are just translations of player characters from your RPG?
There aren't any direct translations yet.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like all of them.
That's what I was expecting.
You're like, none of them. Okay.
And that's a yet. We have one planned that will probably make it directly from the RPG over. And we've also taken characters from the game and of course used them as NPCs.
I would play them, but he wouldn't let me because they're a little too powerful since they're the heroes.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Daryl Andrews, by the way, is watching and he's saying, "Go Raps, go!" you might have met Daryl at KublaCon. I don't know. And then so a lot of people. Oh, here's a good question.
Oh, we're currently winning.
The Raps are? Yay, go Raps.
I figure I'll check in every once in a while.
Yeah, hashtag We the North. Okay. Jim Baker, who is also, by the way, making a sci-fi game, not near future, but far in space type future, he asks, this is going to cover your face, how did you go about selecting a combat mechanism for the game? What choices did you make in the deciding? Oh, this is interesting just in terms of the beta test for this software is that we don't see the whole thing now. Oh, interesting.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and it said you just answered that, but later he said, "Oh, they just answered that." But
okay,
let's talk about that a little bit more. So the combat mechanic, what is it?
So one of the games that Brendon and I met through playing X-Wing mainly, and then through a lot of different games. The most recent one we played before we spent all our time designing this game is Guild Ball. So it is a very beautiful game. If you played it before, just the amount of tactics, the balance, the choices. So we started the foundation of the game from there. So Guild Ball, if you don't know how to play it, generally a lot of games out there, especially war games, you roll the dice. If you hit that person, every single die that hits is some damage, 1 damage. And then the person has X amount of hit points, and that's it. Guild Ball started this thing they call a playbook, which is it's the amount of successes you have out of, let's say, 6 dice. If you have 4 successes, it unlocks more options for you to choose from. So, for example, if you hit once, you can only do 1 damage. But if you hit 3 or 4 hits, you can now choose different things to do. So that was like the foundation of it. Then we was like, how can we take this a little further and make it more cinematic, more exciting? So that's how we came up with what we call the action store. You might hear action market in some of the videos out there, which is you still use the number of successes, but you treat them as a currency, like coins. And you go into the store where you could buy damage, you could buy abilities, you could buy special powers. And as long as you have the coins, you could buy whatever you want in any order you want. So some people might just be attacking. Every time you attack, you roll the dice. And from that, they're just like sidestepping all over the place without doing any damage. Some people might be doing that to trigger like an ability to fend themselves off from the Sims. And other people are just like, okay, they just straight up go for damage. So we wanted something that like, it allows us to create different characters that don't just do damage, but the attacking is the same. You count the dice the same way, you roll the dice, and you're trying to hit the same number each time. So that's kind of goes along with our like streamlining the basic rules, but each character, it gives so much customization for each character.
Yeah, I was thinking, whenever you say The Sims, I'm just picturing people walking around with things over their heads, and you're like shooting them.
Oh yeah, it's CYMS, Cyber Mimetic Sociopath. So shout out to Matthew Proctor Brown, and one of our community members. We had a naming contest.
That's nice.
That was definitely our favorite one.
Very nice. How big is your community? You guys developed a community around this.
Yeah, so currently the Facebook community is about 1,200 people.
That's great.
So been building it like for 6 to 8 months. Definitely really excited to have them around, and they help us kind of come up with ideas. We sometimes go like, hey, should we do this or that? And we just kind of try to engage them and use that to guide both the game and the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Actually, speaking of the campaign, let's see if we can see that for a second. I am going to do some finagling here. And can you tell us a little bit about what is going on with the campaign while I do this? Go right ahead.
Sure. We had a good first day, and now we've kind of hit that dreaded slump or whatever in the middle of the campaign. So, yeah, it's sort of iffy that we'll fund, but we're kind of trying to keep the community engaged and like try out interesting ideas and figure out what we can do better next time to make sure that we get where we're going. Part of that is that we have to lower the goal because I think a lot of people don't believe that first-time creators can pull off like a minis game and should get 60 grand or whatever, in spite of our confidence that we can pull it off. It is a high goal for first timers, and also we probably want to reduce the price a little bit to make it a little more competitive.
Yeah, so I think ultimately definitely want to just use this time to thank all the backers out there, because
absolutely
a lot of times when people see like, oh, they're not funded yet, people start leaving and all that, and I really just am very thankful that I think everyone is still so supportive. We get random messages every day of people just saying like, hey, if you guys have to end up relaunching, we'll be there with you. Mm-hmm. We've done a lot of surveys actually going out to our backers just to be like, hey, how can we improve this? So the page you're actually scrolling through is our V2, which we just finished over the weekend. And we're actually going to do a second push to just really get people to take a look at it. Hopefully this is more convincing and explains the story a lot better. We recorded our first gameplay video. We're not video people, but I think in the last 2 weeks, we've done more live streams and videos than I've ever done in my life. But it's because of this and because of the support that we're doing it for the supporters.
Definitely.
Oh, it's great. Great. I say perseverance. That's the hardest thing, because as you guys said, it's the first go around, and I mean that's kind of a scary place in itself. It's a huge hurdle. Like most people dream about it, you're doing it. So that's already like, kudos to you guys too.
Thank you. Yeah, so much to learn.
Yeah.
We thought, I mean, we read all the blogs out there, like Jamie Stegmaier, James Mathey, and all that, and we thought like, okay, we covered all our bases, and then we launch. And then we get even more feedback and realize, oh, wait, maybe that was not the right place to put that thing, or maybe we didn't like show off the game enough. So one of the things I think we realized the most is we've been doing demos for about a year and a half. Like at least 20 different events / conventions / game stores. And one thing is like we show the game and people are like, oh, this is cool. And then we definitely got some really good fans out there who are advocates for us. But then I think someone told us really well who haven't played it yet. They saw our page, like that doesn't come through. At least our first version of the page. Yeah. Because we didn't have the gameplay videos, people don't really see kind of, oh, here are the interesting tactical choices you have to make. Oh, that character feels just like how he or she's described in the story. You don't get that without playing it. And then we didn't realize that, oh, without videos or stuff to really express that, other people who just look at the campaign page will never be able to get that feeling.
Right. It's just a box of stuff.
Right. Now, I was amazed by the animal faction. What's up with that? How does that work? Can I be a giant elephant that steps on Sims?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Nice.
What?
Tell us about the RPG session that inspired the animal faction.
The animal faction came before the RPGs. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yep. It was just sort of we were just kind of grabbing stuff out of a hat, for a while and kicking a lot of interesting ideas around. Many of them obviously did not make the cut, but the animals were so much fun that we just had to do it.
That is 100 millimeters tall. The animal, the elephant.
That thing is,
it's huge.
This big.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Maybe 2/3
literally
of my
awesome. Like jaw-droppingly awesome. That's cool.
I think the thing is, we were definitely talking about like there are no games out there. There are a lot of games obviously with animals. Most of the time the animals are the companions, the sidekick, or like a mascot. But I don't think, well, maybe there is out there, but like I don't think there's like a pure animal, not like animal people, but animal team up. Oh, maybe there is.
Oh,
Roar.
Oh, the lions,
Where I'm saying get to actually just be the animals, and that's who you are in the game.
Yeah. But definitely interacting with like people, like in the RPG game, we had one session where we had the bear and the Mountie character, because the horse, they're kind of telepathically talking to each other, but Lance the Mountie just sitting on the horse going, what the hell is happening?
And that's very Canadian. I like that. There's a Mountie. So are you considering building the world out in terms of like actually making like RPG supplements or anything like that? Is it something you're thinking of?
Our only constraint is time at this point. We definitely want to do stuff like that for sure.
Quit your jobs! I mean, quit your jobs.
Pay me!
We're getting negative salary right now.
Yeah, right? I actually wanted to ask you that question. So is because that's really poor English teacher guy. Is because due to your experiences in technology fields, do you think that has helped you in designing games? Do you think that has helped you in developing content? Do you think that has helped you in doing things like gathering survey information, putting all that kind of stuff out? What do you think? Is being tech savvy helpful?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on my side, the tech savvy part definitely helps, because then you could go and explore like using Facebook ads or like building a tabletop simulator, Tabletopia and all that. And I'll let Brendon talk more about that. But on the other side of tech, which I think is often underrated, but a lot of the blogs are starting to bring it up, is kind of the project management side of it.
Right, yes.
Which happens to be my day job. So it's one of those, a lot of designers we talk with or interacted with before, if you don't understand how to do that, there are just so many moving pieces. It is literally like any product out there. And if you're trying to make an app or you're trying to make a chair or something, all the pieces coming together, what time, when something needs to get done so you don't block the other person. And that's why you often hear a lot of games take, I mean, I've heard 7 years, 10 years to make, because I think if you don't fully understand that, you'll just kind of trip over yourself. So I'm definitely very grateful that I've been doing that kind of all the time. And I was like, okay, let's have a plan. Here are all the items, here are all the due dates and all that stuff.
That's been really helpful, because I'm kind of scatterbrained. As a programmer, I like to tackle one task at a time, and I like to just dive deep and focus it down, and I'm pretty quick when I'm doing that, but as far as this is just so many different things going on all the time in so many different fields. It's just so much to think about that without his organizational skills, I don't know where I'd be. I may not even be here.
So along those lines, is there been kind of like apps or tools that you guys would absolutely recommend to people who are kind of going down a similar path? Like, what do you find that's really helpful for you?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, spreadsheets, Google Docs, Google spreadsheets.
You just love Google Docs.
Google Docs is amazing. Like just the spreadsheets for sure. I personally am kind of old school in that I use the spreadsheet to make all the timelines and stuff. Financial models using the spreadsheet. Google Docs helps really, like, because there are two of us and then we have like our designer, everyone's in a different place. So sometimes we're just like commenting at each other so we could keep track of everything. I think that part is invaluable. Like if you're not using that, then you're kind of probably just fighting yourself.
Yeah. As far as game design and like play testing and stuff, I think Nandeck is a really good resource.
Right.
That's a tool that just helps you spit out cards from a spreadsheet or something. Super helpful for early play testing and stuff. Yeah. What else?
Obviously, we mentioned Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator for kind of doing remote play tests and showing people the game.
Yeah. Tabletop Simulator is a lot more programmery for sure. So that's something I'm glad that I had experience with because it would be daunting otherwise. I think Tabletopia is a little easier, but I'm not sure yet. I'm in the process. Yeah.
Awesome.
And also just as far as tech goes and its application, I think just a mind for objective data, like I don't know. We're used to hard truths, not kind words. So I think it's like we're always kind of driving for that core data. Like, do people really like it? Do people like this? Do people like that? And like sort of an orientation towards numbers and like statistics and stuff. So keeping the game balanced has been really good for that reason as well.
So does that mean that you so what kinds of things do you keep track of during a playtest then? If you're going to try and use statistics to assess your balance, then what's the data input to that process?
Typically, well, Bernie's also the master archiver. He records everything. So we have every playtest that we've ever done recorded, the outcome, all of that. So it's helped us see things like over time. Okay, it looks like survivalists are winning, by a point or half a point, like
average
on average, So it's helped us kind of pinpoint areas where it's like, okay, we think that the teams are balanced, but we are wrong because this data tells us that, So it's like, we have to let go. You have to let go of that kind of like, oh yeah, we got this, and really look at the data and say, you know what,
right.
we actually need to figure out what's going on with this.
Do you just look at like raw data about the game outcomes and internal game statistics, or do you also keep track of player demographics, the experience they have with the game, observational data? Do you do that as well?
Yeah, we have surveys that we have a demo survey for first-time players, and then we have playtest surveys. So yeah, we're definitely keeping track of it.
Yeah, they rate the game on different aspects of it. So not just the game mechanics, but even like kind of how we explained it, how long did it feel, did the teams feel balanced, things like that. And we base it also on their experience on board games versus miniatures games. Even within miniatures games, how much do they like skirmish style miniatures games? And based on that, we kind of weigh their ratings accordingly. And kind of just to make sure that, hey, our game's not too long, too short. Is it too easy to learn, too hard to learn, and things like that.
Interesting. Sean Howard, who says online game sourcing for scenarios can lead some truly amazing results, is agreeing with how your methodology is working. He also says, I once was asked if I ran a Monte Carlo sim on my game balance. Is there such a thing? And what does that even mean?
So a Monte Carlo simulation is pretty much, it's a statistics thing where you run thousands, tens of thousands of randomized thing that goes into this game, and it tells you the outcome. So for example, like rolling a dice, if I rolled it 10,000 times, each number should be 1/6 of the time. So it's a brute force way of kind of seeing if this thing is statistically how you expect it to be. I've definitely heard of people running it, generally more for games that are probably like card games or games that are like more deterministic, more general board games where the amount of cards, for example, the amount of +2 and +3 or +4 power cards, that's a distribution in there. Does it come out at the right time and all that? And what are the results?
More finite possibilities. Yeah.
I think when it comes to a skirmish game where you have an opponent deciding kind of, when the positioning of the board is thrown in, plus then we have this third party enemy thing, which throws it even crazier. It might, at least I'm not statistically trained enough to do a Monte Carlo to try to figure that out.
Yeah. Let alone getting enough playtests to have enough data for that. That would be incredible.
And we have another comment. Johnny says, I think the lesson here is animals equal base game. So he's saying that if you do relaunch, consider animals as the base game.
Yeah, fair enough.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, if we do relaunch, there's a lot of things we need to kind of think about and reprice, restructure, retier.
So that's an interesting question. So you guys are both first-time designers pretty much, right? Without any other games to your name, and you're also first-time creators and first-time publishers. It's a lot of firsts.
Yeah.
How do you feel going up against that? Does that look that I have on my face of what are you doing come across a lot to you when you meet people? Do they say, hey, that sounds like you're taking on a lot?
No, but I see it in the mirror.
Okay. What are you doing, Self?
I have to say, like, the community we're in, we're part of kind of the local proto spiel. There are a lot of other game designers. I think there's a lot of help that they go, oh, you're first time all three things. Here are some resources you should read. Or, hey, I was there a year ago. Let's talk. So it's definitely, we haven't gone as many of the like, are you guys crazy part? But people have been warning us, hey, this is really hard. I think there was one panel we sat in last year at Proto Spiel that was self-publish or find a publisher.
Right.
And they got some really high power, like local designers who launched many Kickstarters. Some are in the top 100 in Board Game Geek, like just talking about why they chose to self-publish or why they chose to find a publisher.
Yeah, for sure.
Pros and cons. And I think because of that, we were just very clear in when we made the decision of what we want to do.
So tell us about that. Tell us about that decision of why you want to go the self-publishing route, because it is perhaps a little harder.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, it is.
A little harder.
Yes, it is.
Part of it, I think, is creative direction. Again, I mentioned I care a lot about the story. Brendon cares a lot about the art and the miniatures, and we both care a lot about the mechanics. That I think when you go with a publisher, you definitely lose a little bit of that control of like, this is exactly the world I imagined or we imagined. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason, I think, just kind of having the product background. I love launching kind of like your own little startup thing. I just love I actually do play around with that financial model a lot, sometimes too much. It's like, oh, if I tweak this number, what would happen there? Yeah. So there's that curiosity and drive to just want to do something all on our own.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah. And both of you are coming from, jobs or have jobs where, if things don't go well with Kickstarter, you're not out on the street. So you have a little bit of a leeway there, which is great. Do you think that restarting a campaign could strategically actually benefit you? And if so, how?
I think it could, because I think that launching once and like where we're at now, I think we've garnered a lot more attention.
Right.
So that's not bad. Obviously, we'd like to succeed on our first try, but just the reach has been pretty cool, and we've definitely caught people's attention, and it's an opportunity for us to kind of, I don't know, show who we are and show that we're serious about this, and like we're gonna do this one way or the other. So.
Yeah, maybe not the first time, maybe the second time, right? So,
exactly.
And I think
it's interesting.
if we didn't launch this, I wouldn't have met you guys.
Yeah,
I think it was just like, oh, hey, what's out there? Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Who can we talk to and learn and all that? And all these opportunities came up. We also would not have known all the things we didn't do right if we didn't launch.
Totally.
true,
Yeah.
right?
So unless we were just lucky and just got everything right, which is really hard,
Yeah.
like we now know what we need to do.
Right.
It's a really interesting and kind of forgiving system where we can fail and still have the shirts on our back, right? And still be able to maybe do it again. And it's kind of an interesting thing because, here at Meeple Syrup Show and a lot of other people will, take up the same mantra and say, fail faster and learn from your mistakes and try again and fail forward. And Kickstarter seems to be built for that, interestingly enough. So maybe it does, suit our designer mentalities as well, that we're going to be able to try something, see if it works. If it doesn't, no big deal. We try again, or we tweak it a little bit and try again, or we scrap it and we do something else. But failure isn't really that costly. It's time. I mean, there's obviously a cost to all the things you guys have done in terms of going to conventions and making videos and all these types of things. But there's also a lot of learning that you're recouping from the time and the money spent. That next time you launch, chances are day one is going to be a lot better than it was this time around. Chances are your product may change a little bit to better reflect the needs and wants of the community. And chances are things are going to just be, it'll be animals first, right? That'll get all the bidders.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually a little bit curious because, again, you're taking on minis for your first time. So what was sort of the path to get from you guys doing your playtesting to no, we've produced all of these factions in this board, and I mean you did a full minis game. So what was that path kind of like? Because most people shy away from minis for a bit of a reason.
I see the finger of blame being pointed that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of the problem
thing,
is
right?
I like to paint miniatures, and so for me, that's a huge part of the gaming hobby, like the games that I really like to get into. So, I mean, that's just, and it's the kind of games that we've met playing and that we've played together for years, and it's, I mean, a huge part of that is because it's an ongoing community thing. So it's a weekly game night,
We're actually going to one after this. It's our weekly local store miniatures night.
Exactly. So that's a big part of it. Like, I mean, we could make a card game and it's a one-off, and we probably should have. But that's not the game that I came up with, and it's just not what,
Yeah,
So-
you're going with your dream. You're living the dream, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you love the world and other people love the world, there's room to build that card game later, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. That's the thing. It's just what we did. It's just what we came up with and we were like, okay, let's make it happen. And then it's only kind of reflecting a year later that we're like, oh man,
probably should have done the card game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And how's the manufacturing side kind of going for that thing? Because again, I'm assuming you guys are dealing directly with the manufacturers yourself, right?
Indeed we are, yeah. It's not going too badly. We're talking to a bunch of manufacturers, of course, trying to find, just navigating that new water, I guess. And but it's going well. I mean, some manufacturers are really out there to help and try to get the game going, and that's awesome. So yeah, we've definitely been working with some interesting people, learning a lot, and trying to find that balance between like the ultimate awesome high quality game, standard that we would love to do and like what's realistic. So yeah, it's a fun challenge for sure. It's something I actually kind of enjoy, learning about the processes and everything, so.
Cool. We have a question from Sean again. Sean, by the way, is a designer who's designed an RPG and a miniatures game just like you guys. Not the same game, but the world that he's built and the stories that he's telling revolve around a kind of a fantasy world that has the miniatures game side of it, and then also role-playing game side of it as well. So he wanted to know this. He wants to know, did you hire one 3D sculptor modeler or multiple? And if multiple, how do they reconcile stylistic differences?
We just have one,
Yep.
and also Canadian.
Yeah.
Oh, who is it?
Andrew Martin.
Oh, where's Andrew from?
I think it's a small city near Edmonton, I think.
Oh, cool. I don't know him. That's great.
Because
Ama-
all
amazingly
Canadians know
enough,
each other.
we don't know.
What? You don't know each other?
Yeah.
Right.
Some guy in Edmonton.
Yeah, so we have one sculptor. We have a main artist, but we did have two for our 2D art. So maybe that can. So sculptor, we don't know how to answer the question of how to reconcile, but at least the art, our second artist, definitely we started saying like study the art style of the previous one. This is kind of what we want from our characters. It could definitely look different. You have your own style, but if we could have it in this kind of like a realism meets comic style, then that's totally fine. And so far, actually, most people haven't, at least on first glance, been able to tell which one's from which artist.
That's great.
Yeah.
Comic. Have you thought about doing a comic book about this world?
Yes, graphic novel.
Very cool. So you guys are going to be the full deal eventually. This is going to be like Warhammer, right?
Yeah, if we could get this thing out, we definitely want to do like graphic novel, maybe even card game, co-op version. I mean, I play all board games also, and I love co-op games. So a lot of people, we go to demos, and a lot of people have come by. It's like, hey, can I play this co-op? We're like, maybe the next game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Eric asks this. He asks, let's see. Oh, what's the biggest change you made from the first draft of your game to where it is now? And he also wants to know the most important question that any teacher, Eric's also a teacher, wants to know is why? Why did you make that change? Erica knows exactly what he's doing. So what changed?
Why and because.
Yeah.
Those are my words.
Probably the biggest one is the Hex Grid mat.
Huge.
Oh.
It's also the thing that kind of gave us the biggest headache, which I guess we'll elaborate after this.
Mhm.
But to answer it started off as a pure minis game with rulers and, measuring this, measuring that, everything.
Right.
Like rolled
Not a fan.
scatter dice.
Yes.
And then I think,
No, keep going. Nope, that was me hitting something.
okay. Yeah. And then I guess.
Oh yeah. So I went home with the very roughest version of the game for Christmas, and I sat down with my stepdad, who back in 1982 designed a board game called Prospecting. Check that out.
Yeah, I will.
There's a copy on.
You come from
eBay.
a pedigree of game designers.
There you go.
Apparently, yeah. So he's he's got a mind for it, and so I put the game down in front of him, and we played it, and the first thing he said was like, you're gonna have to be able to explain why this isn't hex based. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's a miniatures game, get out the rulers. No way.
Mhm.
And then a couple weeks later, we had a hex mat.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes. Brendon's like, yeah, why not hex? And I was like, yeah, why not hex?
Yeah.
And part of it is one of the things we wanted to make is what some miniatures gamers call it in-between game.
Yeah.
Like we did not want the 4-hour Warhammer game or even like a 2-hour, like Guild Ball's awesome, but it's like an hour and a half to 2 hours. We just wanted a game that like number one can be played somewhere around an hour mark. And number two, we wanted to get non-miniature gamers into miniature games and not be intimidated by it.
Yes.
And rulers is like the number one thing that when you pull out a ruler, they just go, nope.
Yes, for sure.
So
It's not a slide rule. It's just a ruler.
Nope.
It's so funny.
I haven't seen my laser level yet.
Yeah.
Oh, do you use a laser level for Star Wars for like X-wing?
Yep.
A bunch of my friends do too, and I laugh at them. I can just do that with my eye. Other questions? Eric is like, too much. Brad Batchelor, Brad asks, with all the collected stats that you guys have from every game you played, do you ever run into a situation where the math and player perceptions were at odds in a major way? So very much like what you were saying when you guys say, oh, we think this character is super powerful, and it turns out that they're not. Have players ever told you that things were one way, but the stats tell you another way? And how do you rectify that?
That's a very good question.
I would say definitely that's happened, where what happens is that we unintentionally get into a rut where we're playing against each other, and we, it's the reason you have playtesters, right? Because somebody comes up and plays your game and they just do something you've never thought of yourself and completely blows up the scene. So even recently we had that happen where the Mountie caused a total mess.
Oh my God.
By he just destroyed the entire board of full of Sims in a couple of attacks, and it was just out of control. So it's definitely, we've done this a lot where we're like, okay, we plan something out and we have a character and we're going to change him this way and he's just going to be perfect. And then it just falls 100% flat. So, yeah.
But I think also to answer the other part of his question is we definitely have characters where we play tested a lot. The stats, just looking at how many dice rolls and all that is pretty balanced, but it will feel very overpowered. And I think, how do we rectify that? Generally, we try to explain to someone if they're complaining about it or they're trying to figure out why, we would just explain think about this situation, or if you did this is the balance for it. So if someone can shoot a sniper rifle and just knock people out left and right, well, they generate a lot more noise. So maybe in your demo, you did not see that happen. Right. But most of the time, you're going to be swarmed by that, and you have to deal with that. Yeah. So I think a lot of times it's just kind of explaining our design process to the player and inviting that player to kind of give us feedback after we explained it to see maybe there are still loopholes in our logic, and then just iterate off that.
Cool.
Yeah. Bolt, the character he's talking about is Bolt, who is a sniper, and for a long time, she seemed so powerful that she was actually weak, and we refused to see it because she's really hard to play, so she can do all this staggering damage, but she's hard to play, and it just took us a long time. We actually ended up improving her damage against what many playtesters said was already too powerful because she was actually counterintuitively way too weak. Yeah.
Oh, we just had a few people, I guess, just jumped in at the end here. So do you want to just really quickly talk about what overview, what your project is again? Because they're what are we talking about? What game is that?
Oh, yeah. We're talking about Omnicron-Protocol. It's an intra-apocalyptic squad-based skirmish game. You play it on hexes with just low model count, 2 or 4 models on each side. You could play 1v1, 1v2, or 2v2 as teams. And we are actually, this is a good time to mention that because of our community requesting it and talking to us about it, we're going to design one of the first miniature skirmish game solo modes. And we're going to rely a lot on the community's help. It's hey, here's an idea. What do you think? To try to make that fun.
Cool. So while we're back at the high level talking about the game, one of the things that I noticed when I saw it at KublaCon, and we talked about it a little bit, was that you guys have a sort of modernish sci-fi kind of thing going on. Mm-hmm. So what led you to the particular thematic overlay that you picked, and why not dudes in space?
We wanted to keep it approachable, and we wanted people to easily identify themselves in the game. Again, this is meant to be a very approachable minis game that can tempt some board gamers over into our world. And so yeah, and also it's really hard to do super far future space without kind of looking like infinity. and it's also high fantasy. It's we felt that those two extremes were kind of saturated already, and we just wanted to try something new.
Yeah, part of the reason why also I think we started off even using zombicide models for our sims, and while yes, they in the game mechanics they will act just like any other zombie type games, we did spend a lot of times kind of writing out their story background. Why are they reacting that way, and try to counter the usual stereotypes of zombies, just in hopes of trying to make something unique and different and fresh out there.
Cool. There's a lot of other questions. So Sean Howard asks, bonus question, what is the turnaround time from concept to model for your modeler?
Concept to model, so fastest 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then Eric Slauson asks, do you already know what is next after this game? Is there another prototype you're pumped about showing?
Yes, we definitely know what's next. I think the goal is really that co-op version that we're talking about, because the story, it just lends itself to having like level ups and doing some campaign, choose your own adventure type games out there. So we don't have a prototype of that yet because we're not trying to survive this Kickstarter.
You're like one thing at a time, guys.
One thing at a time. But actually, we're really excited because Gen Con last year, we were part of the first exposure playtest hall and tested Omnicron-Protocol. And this year, we're participating again with the double exposure guys, and we're going to test our next concept.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
And how did you find the first exposure playtest hall as a person, as a group that went there? How did you find it? Was it worth your money? Was it worth your time?
Oh yeah. We found it. Generally, at every convention we look for, hey, how do we DM or how do we do demos, or is there something we could participate in? And I just saw this FEPH thing, read about it, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So we signed up for it. I mean, it's totally worth it because the price is only maybe like $50 more than what it would cost to buy 2 badges.
Right.
And you get 8 hours guaranteed of demoing. They organize that. They say it's called organized chaos. After we saw it, it is true.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
There's like no way you could when you look at it, like, there's no way they could get everyone into seats for like 80 designers in 15 minutes with that many people lined up, and they do it every 2 hours.
Yeah,
So,
they're really quite good at it. It's pretty amazing.
If you are a designer, do it.
For sure.
Good. So first exposure playtest hall at Gen Con, run by the double exposure team. That's Avenel and Vinny and all of those people. They're awesome. So please do get out there. So not only as a designer, if you just want to playtest, go see what's going to be the next new thing on Kickstarter. A lot of people do use it like pre-Kickstarter. So they might be a couple months out. They might be a year out. But you'll be in the know if you go and playtest. So it's a nice place to go. What other things are you guys doing in terms of playtesting? So locally, you said that there's the Protospiel that's local. There's a group that meets, and you have your own community. What else are you doing?
We have our print and play out. So we have through double exposure. We also have some people, some playtesters out and around the world. We actually have a bunch of playtesters who aren't filling out their surveys. So guys, fill out those surveys, please.
It's really funny because we're like, no one's downloading our print and play, because we're not getting any surveys. And then we start seeing random posts saying, I played this game with my family and it's great. I was like, wait, what? Who are you?
Why don't we know that? Yeah, it's pretty funny. So,
but yeah, definitely those demos, we go to different game stores. Like in the next, since we launched, I think till the end, we're 50% of so 15 out of 30 days, we're kind of demoing somewhere with someone.
Yes. And we'll be at Origins.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So be at Origins. And are you doing playtesting thing there? Or,
We're doing just a demo schedule. So Friday, Saturday, 2 through 10.
Great.
You could just find us if you just search Omnicron-Protocol on the schedule.
Okay, and then they can come play that game. Excellent. So for all y'all who are out at Origins in the next couple of days, weeks, do go check out. Yeah, it is. Go to check out Bernie and Brendon's game Omnicron-Protocol. You can find it in the guidebook if you search for the game, I believe. And then you can find a session that may be opened and find them and play their game. And even if there isn't a session open, go find them and they'll probably play their game anyway.
We will show you some rules or something. Yeah,
we'll do something for you.
Yeah, excellent. So it's come down to that time. Jesse, can you do the honors, sir?
Yeah. So tradition around here is to always ask the same question last. And so if there was one piece of advice you could give to all the game designers that are out there, what would you say to them?
Oh.
And since there's two of you, you can each, give a piece of advice.
You each get an answer. It's like a double.
Piece of advice. That's a really good.
That is a good one. Let's see here. Well, I guess mine would be do the card game first. I mean,
make the minis the second project.
Yeah. Yep. I have no regrets, but fight the temptation. and do something small and easy first. Yeah.
Mine would be do your research. We are in a really the golden age of Kickstarter, and there's so much information out there for you to read. So take your time, go ask questions. There are Facebook groups out there that are just so helpful that I often, the reason I give this advice is I'm part of that group. I'm now finally giving back to that group and giving some advice as well as still asking a lot of them. But there are people who kind of post like, hey, I'm launching next week. Do I need a Facebook community or an email list? And everyone's like, whoa, hold on.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, just anyone who participates over many months, like you could just tell that their Kickstarter page or their marketing plan is just way more polished, and most of them are successful.
Yeah.
So do the research.
Definitely. Yeah. If you're gonna do Kickstarter, do that research. It's huge. Yeah.
Excellent. So we're going to say goodbye to Bernie and Brendon in a second, but not before we mention their game one more time. Omnicron-Protocol by Deadalive Games on Kickstarter right now.
Yeah.
Go check it out. If you like it, back it. Because if you get it to fund this time, that'd be wonderful. But if not, they'll probably start again and keep your name on the list. You know when it is.
Yeah, you'll get all our updates.
Yeah.
It looks like a really cool game, so I'd love to see it. The other thing is we've survived our first months of Patreon, which is great. We've got 14 or 15 patrons now, which is wonderful. Thank you so much to our patrons. We just sent out the list today to basically thank all our patrons. We'll do that on a monthly basis. If you are following us on Patreon, www.patreon.com/Meeple Syrup, you can subscribe or patronize us. That sounds like a very weird way to say it. Or as low as $1 a month. This $1 a month will help us meet our goals. And you can see the whole thing right over there, right on top of Erica's head. See, things like that, making us look more professional, like by putting things on top of Erica's head.
We're working on it.
We're working on doing more, better things for people
Support us
out
on
there.
support us on Patreon, and Erica will wear more hats. I think that's the message.
Yeah, that's the message. And Jesse was supposed to lose more buttons on his shirt, but I don't think that's going to happen. All right. So very cool. You can look for us on Facebook at Meeple Syrup. Jesse is at TT Void on Twitter. I am at SenFogLim on Twitter. Erica, who are you?
Frenemy Games with an I.
That's right. And Bernie and Brendon, how can people reach you?
Everything is at Omnicron-Protocol, one word. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you search that Board Game Geek, YouTube would be Deadalive Games. Otherwise, deadalivegames.com or search Omnicron-Protocol. Both will lead you to the right place.
Yeah. Wonderful. So we hope that there's good things in the future for the game. And Erica and I will see you at Gen Con. Jesse's not going to be there, but we will see you at Gen Con. We're not going to be at Origins because of Father's Day. And we will definitely, sit down and play a game with you there.
Yeah, let's meet up. We'll teach you the game.
Sweet.
All right. We'll see everyone later.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Meeple Syrup Show. If you'd like to support us on all of our projects, please check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/MeepleSyrup. Hope to see you next week.